that just prompted a question in my mind.
Yeah.
Could this attack of 85 U.S. locations in Kuwait and Bahrain, could that have been from Trump saying we are going to choke your oil and your ability to make money? Or could it be, hey, we're just coming off the week of the funeral of former Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, and we just feel a need to show our people in Iran that we're still strong, and this was just one last, blow 85 things up, and then they want to go back to the ceasefire?
I think it's the latter. I think it's a demonstration in their view that they're still the ones in charge, and they're not. And I think this is why we're going to see an order of magnitude response from these hits over tonight, probably. And I think it's abundantly clear that the Iranian leadership did not understand. It's like, no, we're giving you a pause to bury your leader. And by the way, I think they believed somehow that it was a flex to be burying their leader on our over our 4th of July weekends. Like, I don't think so. I think it does demonstrate to the world that no matter how sophisticated you thought your air defenses were, we took the guy out the first day, and you chose to choose this date. Okay, whatever. We're the ones now dictating terms to you. And I think that's where we're at, is that you've got a group who just do not want to give up. They're going to continue to do things to unravel any agreement. And I would argue, even if we come to some sort of a terms to reinstate, like you said, maybe they thought they could just jump right back into the agreement. No, you can't attack our allies and expect us to do nothing. And this is where I think the Abraham Accord and the use of our allies has to become the front and center issue. Our Arab allies have to be lining up and be preparing to go back into combat with us against Iran.
Okay. President Trump talked very openly about taking Kharg Island, but said that most likely the best route after this coordinated hit to show them that we're not messing around, to reimpose the naval blockade, because this hurt Iran financially without inflicting a bunch of death, having to hit their bridges and their electric grids. Do you think that maybe that is the better way to go, or does there need to be a strong kinetic response tonight?
I would have started even before the kinetic conflict, Stephen, of going after their global oil. That's what we did with Venezuela. We started making the Venezuelan government's life very miserable by seizing ships and curtailing their ability to make money. We did that with Iran later. We've done it again now by saying, okay, sanctions are back on your oil. But ultimately, I do believe that that's our best option. As a matter of fact, one of the best things we could do for the Iranian people is just seize all their tankers, seize everything. It's like, it's ours, and you'll get it back as soon as we see your government, you and your government change to stop murdering your own people. I think that's the biggest leverage we have. And so I think that's what I would recommend to the president if I were talking to him over this. And then, of course, the military options, I've said on Newsmax multiple times, those military options never went away. I had a brief meeting with the Secretary of War a few weeks ago, and it's very clear that not a thing is diminished regarding our capability to go forward and do things against the Iranians. So I don't know what the Iranians are thinking. I don't know what kind of alternate universe they live in, but I can tell you that the chances of them surviving leadership-wise diminish by the day anytime they act out like this. And I think President Trump really wants them to take the deal where they can negotiate forward their existence. If not, we're going to go back to killing the leaders until they decide that they're going to comply with what the United Nations has said about their nuclear program, and for them to stop attacking their Arab allies, our Arab allies. It's just totally insane.
Okay. You've got decades of military experience. I don't believe President Trump wants to hit electric grids or the bridges used by the Iranian military, but is it safe to say that Israel and the United States likely have every bridge mapped right now that they know to hit?
We've been planning for war, Stephen, since I was a lieutenant, since, I joined in 1981, just shortly after the Iranian Revolution. So from my experience, we have mapped, remapped, we've satellite imaged, We've used any number of close-in assets to understand better terrain and urban areas. There's no doubt that we have everything very well mapped. The question becomes, okay, what do we do? Because ultimately, if we break things, we're always going to be the ones who rebuild it. We all know that. So I think the caution that President Trump is showing is very much needed. And I think we should focus on military and leadership targets primarily over any infrastructure, because infrastructure always becomes something we have to help rebuild, especially if we want to have a strong Iranian economy once we're done with the conflict.
Okay, that makes sense. How we were able to strike 15,000 targets, within a matter of weeks. 10% of our military was able to take out almost 100% of their Navy and Air Force in a 1-week period. The 5th largest army in the world. And I can tell President Trump is very much trying to avoid boots on the ground, but he's losing his patience with this. Now, all of this is being talked about and decided while he's in Turkey, an Arab nation, an Islamic nation. President Erdogan said he hopes that President Trump and Israel will de-escalate, that cooler heads will prevail. But, Turkey, they're, I believe, the only Islamic nation that's a part of NATO. Do you see them interfering if we have to go back in, or would they just say we're going to remain hands off, but diplomatically encourage cooler heads to prevail?
So this is a problematic issue. Erdogan is playing a game for Erdogan's benefit and Turkey's benefit. It doesn't matter that he's in NATO. As a matter of fact, during the war against ISIS, Erdogan left the back door open for ISIS to grow and become more powerful. That's how they were growing. Once they were created in Syria, which Erdogan supported, along with the Clinton folks who were working behind the scenes, the Clinton State Department, helped create ISIS as part of the effort to get rid of the leader in Syria, President, what's his name? Assad, when they were trying to get rid of Assad. So when they were working through Turkey to get these weapons to this Islamic group, this Al-Qaeda offshoot that became ISIS, Erdogan was fine with that. Erdogan has also spoken out directly against the Israelis regarding Hamas and the Gaza Strip. So that's a real challenge. On the other hand, Erdogan has asked for F-35s. The Israelis strongly oppose that. I understand why. I still believe the F-35 is overblown. Just saying, I think the allure of the F-35 is far greater than the reality. Just, something we can talk about another day. Anyway, there are some levers and points of leverage that President Trump has on Erdogan. I don't think the Turkish would jump back in. Their big issue regarding the regional threat is the Kurds. So as long as the Kurds are not something we're encouraging to uprise against Turkey, I think Erdogan will stay on the sideline. And because I think he wants the F-35, I think he's going to be very quiet if we can cut a deal with him on that. So I think Turkey's going to take itself out of contention because of its own self-interest at this point in time.
Okay, that makes sense why President Trump was saying at the NATO convention, we might consider selling jets to Turkey. So, so he's dropping lines and hope there as they deal with this.
Right.
Speaking of this conference, for the last 2 days, President Trump has been hard on NATO, shaming them over and over again for not helping the United States, despite the fact that we've sent nearly 1 million Americans to death for World War I and World War II. He talked about how they're not pulling their fair share. They're completely underprepared. They're overly dependent on the United States. Where do we go from here with NATO? Is most of this just threats, or do we significantly scale back? I don't see us fully pulling out of NATO.
Well, we are NATO. Not for us.
We are NATO.
There is no NATO. So there's 3 things, Stephen, that we have that they will never have, and without those things, they are not NATO. First off, is logistics. We are the backbone that moves everything for NATO. The French tried an exercise to move a bunch of their equipment to Hungary or something. It didn't work. It's like they try to put stuff on trains and trucks. They can't do it. So that's the first thing. They are basically hobbled without us. Secondly, they can't survive without our command and control. We're the ones who basically are the arbiter of everything, because the French get in arguments with Germans, Germans get in arguments with the Finns. It's a mess. So we're the ones who basically are able to array and put into motion these individuals, these countries, into a unified command. That's what our job is. So if you give it to Germany, then the French are going to be upset. It would never work. And third, and most importantly, intelligence. Even right now, the Ukrainians, who are not a NATO member, would not be able to do the deep strikes into Russia without us. Just saying. So President Trump is correctly saying, you need to all step up, because without us, you can't do this. And if we step away, you're really SOL. So that's what the message is. I think it's correct. Some people have been saying, my friend Fred Flights has been saying, well, they're up to 2%. That's not 5%. Even the Canadians, Stephen, are not doing their fair share of this. So I consider it a mixed bag. The Europeans, the EU, keep saying we think they want to go to war with Russia by 2030. It's like, okay, well, we're not going to be there for that. But if you want to pretend, go ahead. So he's just simply trying to get the European leaders and Mark Rutte to wake up to the realities. Like, if we pull out, you're done. And if you don't step up, we're done with you. So that's what's going on.
Okay, so if the United States is NATO, we can't leave us. We're going to spend $1 trillion. Trump is talking about 1.5 trillion.
Yeah.
So instead of us leaving, maybe he asks other people to leave. For example, he said, America is done trading with Spain. I'm cutting off all trade with Spain. I'm giving them no NATO support, and we're looking at moving our troops out, because during this conflict, we couldn't use our own equipment, our own people, or their airspace. It cost us time having to go around them. So it looks like he's going to be dropping Spain from doing any kind of business with the United States.
Yeah. Well, we don't need Spain. I hate to be that blunt, but it's kind of like, even Portugal, which is smaller than Spain, is more important because they have lodges. It's like an air base we have that's in the Azores, a very important mid refueling stop for us. So there's really no reason we don't need Spain, and the British still hold Gibraltar. So it's kind of like, we don't need you. And if they want to act up, then sure, maybe we ought to show them the door. We have to be practical at this point, Stephen. We can't rely on relationships that may have worked 40 years ago that really don't mean anything now. So I agree with President Trump on this. We just don't need him.
All right. Well, Spain has been conquered by their illegal immigrant situation. They just offered amnesty to like 600,000 people, but then they opened it up digitally. And now we're learning that 400,000 people from outside of Spain applied, and under their law, they now have to let them in. So they just effectively added 1 million people dependent on Spanish welfare. If you did that, I mean, that's the kind of crap that they were trying to do on America. Spain just got hoodwinked, and they're probably going to pay the price for that. Let me ask you this. Obviously, President Trump is going to do everything he can to avoid the death of American soldiers.
Yes.
But as I look at Iran, it seems like the threat to oil prices rising is a greater threat to President Trump than even the IRGC at this point. Is that a fair statement?
No, I don't think so. I think that the issue of oil has been something that he's been addressing since Venezuela. Remember, we did an actual takedown of Venezuela with boots on the ground. We didn't stay, but we went in, and I think there's a very similar thing's about to happen with Iran. It's like, you don't have to own the cow to get the milk, Stephen, just saying. So you just have to make sure the cow's available. It's like, you need to be in our pasture. It's like, okay, well, we'll bring you into the barn and get the milk, and you can go back out. That's what's going on. And I don't believe for a minute, based on, again, my conversations with the Secretary of War, what I know about President Trump from advising him. No, the interest is just trying to do what's best for the country long term. The oil right now, at the time we're speaking, is $71 a barrel. That's pretty darn good compared to where it's been. I think it's going to fall even more. As a matter of fact, I think there's a coming glut of oil that's going to drop the price of oil even more. So I'm confident that President Trump is trying to do the right thing and prevent any loss of life of Americans or others. Yeah,
I completely agree with you. Colonel Schaefer, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Stephen.
Where can I point people if they want to follow you?
So Colonel Tony Schaefer.com is the YouTube. and then just T Spooky on X. So come on by, and we do our own content.